Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365, a Monday edition of Birds 365, moving right along here in the offseason final preseason game this week. Joined now by Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports. Jeff, I was looking forward to seeing the new studio setup that you teased last week. We don't have it. Welcome to the show, Jeff. Good to have you back on, my friend.
Yeah, not this week. Last week was pretty busy. I was in New York. I was in Philly.
Come on, you got to make time. I want to see the new studio.
Yeah, the excuses train started rolling
quick. Hey, you know what? It'll definitely be ready by September 6th. I'll say that.
All right.
Okay, just a couple week buffer.
Just blame it on the downstairs people.
Well, they did a great job. They were actually moving the furniture in when I was on the show last week.
All right. The downstairs people kind of get it right occasionally. That was one of my favorite Vic Fangio-isms from Sunday. What was your favorite Vic Fangio sort of off-the-cuff remark?
Him basically not telling the offense that, or doesn't give a rat's ass about the offense, and just I just did it.
That was a good one. That missed my top three. There's so many. That would have been four if I.
John, I don't know if you saw, but you're sitting like right in front of him. I'm in that second row, like right where his peripheral vision, and I think he saw me chuckle and was like, "Yeah, I do. I put out a good one."
Yeah, it's a tour de force for Vic Fangio, but. Well, I will say, I don't know what's going on at linebacker. So am I wrong about Nakobe Dean and how he's performed over the past week or so, and certainly over the weekend?
I thought Nakobe Dean's had a great week and a half of practice. Do I think he's the starter? I think that's up to Vic.
Well, it's definitely up to Vic.
Yeah, I mean, he's out playing Zach Bond. I think Devin White, we can pencil him in. I'm pretty sure Devin White's going to be starting. It probably should be Nakobe Dean based on how he's played the last week and a half. I don't know if Vic's in love with Zach Bond that much, but those are the two I would go with right now, Dean and White.
Yeah, and I by the way, I think it's evident. I have a lot of respect for Vic Fangio, but I will destroy him if Nakobe Dean is not out there on September 6th. That makes no sense. No sense. I thought, and I said it to Xander a lot. I in a lot of ways, I thought this linebacker group was, interchangeable. If you played Devin and Zach, it'd be the same as Nakobe and Trotter. Even throw Ben Van Sumeren. Even Oren Burks is finally back from injury. I thought there wasn't that much difference between whoever you want to label linebacker 1 to all the way down to linebacker 5 or 6. I no longer think that.
I think it is clearly better with Nakobe Dean on the field. We saw that yesterday.
I think it is clear and definitive. And that's what Vic said a couple weeks ago. It'll become obvious. Well, it has become obvious at that particular position. And look, Zach Berman said it was his best practice ever yesterday. So it's not only me. And I, by the way, I thought he was better on Saturday than he was on Sunday, which was Zach's description of his best practice ever. It has become obvious. So I don't care about your love or your default love for certain players. It's supposed to be a meritocracy, right?
The best player will play. Nakobe Dean's the best player. Zach Bond, really, to me, hasn't done anything in 2 weeks. Not like he's been bad, but Nakobe Dean's just jumped him. You have to play Nakobe Dean. He has to start. I don't care about his coverage limitations. I don't care about any of that right now. If you preach about stopping the run, there's your guy. That's the guy you need to stop the run. Stop trying to make Bryce Huff stopping the run the thing. Stop trying to, try to mix and match. That's your guy. Honestly, John, that should be your mic.
Yeah,
What
I
about
agree.
Devin White, Jeff Kerr? What have you seen from Devin White? We talk a lot about Nakobe, and I'm with you guys. I haven't seen him play, obviously, up close and personal, but if he looks that much better, he should be out there. He's also the one that they've invested the 3rd-round draft pick in, so I think he will. But what about Devin White? He was the guy that, the pedigree player, the signing of the off. Everybody's like, he has a chance to turn this linebacking core around. What have you seen from Devin White so far through training camp and preseason?
He was the signing of the all season, Xander. That's a bad off season.
Well, he was, and
You forgot about Saquon.
was.
By the way, what was Saquon? I'll get into that.
He
Go
was
on.
the linebacker signing, though, Jeff. He was, remember, we don't get many linebackers, Jeff. So when we get one, we take what we can get.
I told you, organizational malpractice is what they did at linebacker. That was it. But look, Devin's been fine. Hasn't been good. Hasn't been bad. But he's better than what they have. And they like his athleticism. They like how they can put him in blitz packages. Look, he's great at that. I think he's great at running downhill. It's, can he tackle? Can he just not be Devin White in Tampa Bay outside of 3 games? If he isn't that, then that's a fine signing. But there's a reason why he's not getting paid a lot of money to play football this year.
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking about that for a long time, and I think, it's kind of amazing to me how much pedigree shifts people's visions, and sometimes clouds their vision, because, he has been an all-pro, and that's what a lot of fans default to, and he has had 9 sacks. But if you look at his film, and even that season, it wasn't good overall. And it hasn't been good for his entire career in Tampa Bay. Can you turn it around after 5 years? Yeah, I'd be hesitant. And I constantly say there's 31 other teams in this league. A lot of them are dumb, but a lot of them aren't dumb. And nobody was beaten down the door. And that tells you a lot from that perspective. You brought up Saquon. Saquon's your guy. Jeff's Penn State guy. We all know that. What the heck was he doing with the? I mean, he didn't bring it up himself, but somebody kind of asked, do you model your game after somebody? And he went down this wormhole, sort of like me on this show, and he starts talking about Emmitt Smith and Barry Sanders and Walter Payton, some of the all-time greats, and who he watches. He even mentioned recently Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott in this offense, with Kellen Moore, obviously LaDainian Tomlinson, Marshall Faulk is the type of players that he wants to be. And then he went into what's your definition of greatness, and he said he wants to be the best of all time. What? Why is he going down this route, bringing up names like that? That to me, he's a very smart guy, very savvy guy. Look, you ain't getting at that level. We're talking about Devin being year 5. I mean, Saquon, what is this? Year 6, 7?
This will be year 7 for Saquon.
7? I mean, that dog is hunting. I mean, why are you bringing that up and putting those expectations on yourself?
I don't get it. Quite honestly, like I don't understand. Well, first off, when he said Emmitt Smith wasn't, and look, again, that he's right. It's up to opinion, but I'm like, dude, you kind of discredited Emmitt Smith there. Oh, he's got the most rushing.
It did kind of disrespect Emmitt, but I get what he's saying. Emmitt's the all-time rushing leader. Great player, great, well-rounded player, tremendous pass protector, old school 3-down back, great receiver. People don't realize outlet receiver more. And Barry's just the best pure runner to running backs, But Barry wasn't great at the other stuff. He wasn't a pass protector. He was okay as a receiver. They would take him out inside the red zone because he'd lose. When you're in the red zone, you got to be north-south, and he was always trying to.
He was an east-west
plays. Yeah. So I mean, it depends. There's a lot of context in it. Pure runner, I don't think anybody's going away from Barry Sanders, but well-rounded running back, that's a different conversation. Walter Payton, again, any of these names, you're not going to be wrong. It's just you got to put the proper context. I just don't know why he's throwing these names out there, because the comps are coming. And
yeah, who would you compare Saquon Barkley to today? I don't know. Like, he's nowhere near
the
that
Eagles,
level.
it's Christian McCaffrey, which is bad enough. And he kind of brought up LT and Marshall Faulk, which is, I don't know if that's what people are expecting. And I wouldn't play into those expectations, because we saw last year about how expectations can crush a team, because I think that's what happened to the Eagles last year. I mean, they were 10-1, Jeff. I don't want to re-legislate.
And they didn't think they were good enough.
No.
I've never seen anything like it, John. Like, for example, when they beat the Giants on Christmas, they win a game for the first time in 3 weeks, and they looked miserable. How are you miserable after winning a football game?
Most miserable 10-1 team. That was the tagline in history. So, yeah, I would temper the expectations. Now, sometimes when you get out there and you're talking extemporaneously, you just go down routes you didn't want to go down. But I thought it was interesting. And God bless him. He admitted that he didn't reach expectations with the Giants, and he still wants to be one of the best of all time. I respect that. But, I'd keep it to myself.
He's going to have to run like 2,000 yards for like 4 consecutive years to like even get in that conversation.
Yeah. Well, that would get him in the conversation.
Oh, that would probably be the best. That would be like Marshall Faulk, 1998 to 2001.
Yeah, that would definitely get him in the conversation. All right, but we'll bring it back to what's going on right now. Boy, when Lane Johnson doesn't play, you really recognize how good Lane Johnson is.
Yeah.
He wasn't at practice yesterday, and I mean, it's amazing. The Eagles with Lane Johnson, the Eagles without Lane Johnson. And then they lose Mekhi Becton in practice. Luckily, it doesn't look like it's going to be serious. So the right side was Brett Toth, and remember, Tyler Steen's also out. So the right side was Brett Toth and Fred Johnson. And guess what? You're not as good in those instances, Jeff.
Honestly, it looked like the New York Giants offensive line. That's how bad it was.
Oh, and by the way, why is Landon Dickerson practicing?
That's what I said. You and I talked about this yesterday, John. I would tell Landon Dickerson, see you September 6th.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even bother. Like, he was just you could tell he's favorably limping. Ed Kratz and I were watching the one-on-ones yesterday, and he held off Milton Williams. He just came up limping. And we're like, dude, you don't need to practice right now. You just don't have to. Every time apparently someone steps on that, I guess that lacerated toe is still a thing, right?
Yeah, he got stepped on again, I guess, Saturday, and he was complaining about that. But the knee's been an issue. He hurt that in like day 3, and he's just playing through it.
It's going to be a long year if he keeps doing
He's like the toughest guy in the world. But if you're the Eagles, it's like, what are you doing? I mean,
this is your opportunity to give Trevor Keegan some first-team reps. Just let him do it.
I mean, I'm with you. He's definitely not going to play in the preseason game. But I'm talking about practice. Just shut him down.
Yeah, you got, 2 weeks? More than 2 weeks now? Just let him rest. Let him heal up.
Yeah, that one's a surprise to me. It really is. And I think the Eagles, part of it is he probably is fighting back, and he tells everybody he can play and there's no structural damage, and he is a tough guy, and you say, all right, go out and practice. But sometimes you got to protect a guy from himself, I think.
That's the Jason Kelce syndrome. Jason Kelce played through so much crap, and especially in practice. I remember, what was it, John? What was the injury he had? The elbow injury a couple of years ago? Like he didn't want to get the surgery or something right away? Yeah. I'm like, Just get it done.
No, well, then he would have missed time. So I remember exactly that was the Las Vegas game when they got blitzed out in Vegas. And he got hurt on the play before halftime, and we all thought, all right, he's done. He's out for a significant period. And first play of the third quarter, he's out there.
Yeah. Played the rest of the year.
Playing with one arm. And he figured it out, put a brace on there, played the rest of the season, became an all-pro again. So there is something, look, when the regular season goes, you love that from a player. And Landon will play through stuff same way. But in practice, like I don't need that. I'm like, thank you, but I don't need that.
Yeah, we know how tough you are. You're getting paid $21 million a year. Just calm down a bit.
Yeah. That's how I would.
And he was fired up over a couple things yesterday. So,
oh yeah. Should we what did you make of that? Because I'll put it this way to the fans. There were two high-profile players. You can guess one of them. Two very high-profile players on the Eagles offense that were complaining about red zone play calling. Let's be honest.
And it wasn't bad play call. It wasn't great.
What do you make of that? Just frustration?
Yeah,
that to me on August, what was yesterday? August 18th. That to me, like, you just don't do that out of the blue, is how I kind of took it.
I feel like they were not having a good day of practice. And a lot of those, just watching the defense just pummel them, I think there were guys just getting frustrated. Like that play that landed. Yeah, I guess I'll say it. It was Landon. It wasn't a good play, and Landon wasn't pleased about it. But
yeah, well, the other one you'd be very surprised by.
Yeah,
I'm not going to.
But I think that's just the heat of battle. I think that's just players getting frustrated. I mean, Jalen Carter was in the backfield pretty much every single play in red zone yesterday, and
well, that's tough duty for poor Brett Toth going against Jalen Carter.
Yeah, and then you got Jalen on that specific play. He looked clueless. Like, okay, am I going to throw my first training camp interception here? He forced it. I thought it was going to get picked, but yeah, that was definitely an interesting revelation after, and then just watching Landon in the aftermath of everything. I don't need to go into further detail.
Yeah. Very difficult. Backup quarterback. Boy, Eagles fans who want Tanner McKee.
I got some news for you.
Be very, very grateful you were not at practice Sunday. It's interesting. I'm doing a story for SI about the difference between first team reps, second team reps, third team reps. And I was talking to an executive, and he told me, and I thought this was brilliant, so I want to give him credit. You got to evaluate the rep before you evaluate the player. And what he's saying is, was it a valuable rep? Because so many things can go wrong with second, third team reps. The most obvious, like, you're not going to, other than the guy who makes the mistake, you're not going to pay much attention to a false start or a guy lining up wrong, other than obviously the guy who makes a mistake. That's a wasted rep. The best example of this, and Brett Toth just talked about it, last year, Brett was the backup center to start behind Jason Kelsey, and he had a real difficult time with shotgun snaps. And so many of them went awry that the Eagles had to bring in Josh Andrews just to get some reps for the second team. Poor Marcus Mariota gets criticized, and everybody was saying how terrible he was. I always joke, he was playing shortstop before he was playing quarterback, because he would have to get the snap, and then all the timing is destroyed. with that second team rep. So I bring this back to Tanner McKee because, people saw the game, and in the game, he performed well, and Kenny Pickett did not perform well, obviously. Same game, different reps. Kenny was against the first team with second team talent. Tanner was against the third team talent with third team talent.
John, I'm gonna add on to this. There was only one. I don't even want to call it a hot take, but when people were flipping out how bad Kenny Pickett was on social media, it was Pittsburgh Steelers writers who were watching that game who I actually thought made a good take. See, this is the Kenny Pickett we know. And I said, that's fair because you've had him for 2 years. You've seen him against first-team defenses. But then, like, the whole Tanner McKee's going to be out Kenny Pickett, they decided to roll with that crap,
Yeah. Well, he got an opportunity yesterday
in
what was essentially a scrimmage. And he got 2 opportunities with the second team, one in the red zone, one sort of full field. The full field thing was awful. I mean, 3 of the worst plays.
That was Clayton Thorson level bad, John.
Yeah. And the red zone resulted in 95-yard pick six by Perry Nickerson.
He telegraphed that pass too.
Yeah. So evaluate the reps before you can evaluate the player. And if it's a good rep, if it's a clean rep, then you can evaluate the player. But I will say the Eagles like their quarterback room. They think they have a good backup quarterback, and that's Kenny Pickett. They think they have a good third string quarterback, and that's Tanner McKee. But he had a very poor practice on Sunday.
I just want fans to know this. If you think Kenny Pickett's bad, watch Easton Stick on the Los Angeles Chargers. Watch a lot of these quarterbacks in these preseason games instead of just watching one football team and claiming you know everything about the league.
Yeah.
And then you'll see, maybe our guy's not that terrible.
Yeah. There's not 32 guys that are starters, to be honest, in the world. There are not 32.
One's on the giant. He is not an NFL starter. He sucks. I'm sorry. I was
watching a little bit of San Francisco last night, and Josh Dobbs is one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league, and he stinks.
Yeah,
when he's
so right, John. Yeah.
And as a backup though, he can do some things for you. He can win, and he did it last year, and you saw it. He won games for Arizona, he won games for Minnesota, but then the more he plays, the more he gets exposed. But he's top 5 in my estimation, backup quarterback.
That's what they're afraid of in Pittsburgh right now. I think they want to give Justin Fields that starting job because of that offensive line, but they also know the more this guy plays, he's going to get exposed, and then you're just going to go back to Russ. And I don't know.
But Russell Wilson, well, Russell's going to the Hall of Fame, so obviously he's not the player he once was. We all know he's a descending player, but he's still worlds better than Justin Fields. Justin Fields can't play. And part of that is just he was ruined by the Chicago Bears. And the confidence is shot. And, you measure, you talk about 2.3 seconds and Doug Musmeyer and Kellen Moore and how they want the quarterback to get the football out of his hands. And you don't measure Justin Fields processing with a stopwatch. You measure it with a sundial. I've never seen a slower processor in my entire life.
He did this weekend. He did it this weekend too. It's, same dog, new tricks.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't talked to people in Pittsburgh because, why would I at this stage? But if they're even considering Justin Fields over Russell Wilson, I would be stunned. Be stunned.
If they are, it's because Broderick Jones is not a good right tackle. They're figuring that out. Nate Herbig's out for the year. Troy Fontenot's hurt. They just want somebody who can get out of the pocket and with Russ. That's just not his game anymore.
Jeff, I'm happy we opened up about some other teams. Where do you think the Eagles are coming into this year in the NFC East? You think they're by far that number one? You think Dallas is close by? Washington, I think, had a pretty good offseason in the non-Daniel Snyder era now. You know, where are we in this NFC East? Are we closer to NFC least or NFC beast?
I don't think it's the NFC least. I still think the Cowboys are going to be a good football team. I don't think they're as good as the Eagles, though, because I think there's so much internal stuff going on between the Mike McCarthy pressure of keeping his job, the Dak Prescott contract uncertainty, CeeDee Lamb isn't back yet. Michael Parsons wants a deal. Look, it's still a talented team, but is Jerry really going to afford a slow start because he doesn't want to pay these guys? That's an intriguing part of this team. I mean, look, the Cowboys are still going to blow out bad teams and give you this paper tiger thing, as they always do.
Those are fighting words. I like it. Paper tiger.
I mean, you know what, John?
No, they're a good team. They're a good team, and they are going to beat up on bad teams.
Washington's going to be, I think, the surprise this year. I really like Jaden Daniels. I like what they're doing. Now, I will say this. The Eagles should be able to throw for 350 yards against the Washington Commanders both times this year because their cornerback situation is bad. Their secondary is not good. It's just Dan Quinn's doing a lot of right things there, but you can't fix everything in one offseason.
No.
You know,
yeah, I like Washington long term, but not this year. It's still the haves and have-nots. I mean, the Giants are terrible. The Commanders are going the right way, but they're terrible.
Yeah, they were 4-13 last year. I mean, if they win 7 games, I think that's a good year.
Yeah, and the Eagles and Cowboys are good, but I think it's fair to say the Eagles are probably better on paper to start the season, and part of it is what Jeff said, the creation that Jerry Jones unfolds by the way he acts, and he tends to pay his players in the end, but he creates all this unnecessary angst. And while I think culture is overblown and people make way too much out of it, I also think it's real to a certain extent. And if guys are unhappy, guys are unhappy.
I agree. And it seems like they're now at that point. It's like the linebacker position in Philly. We've taken it too far. I think Jerry's taken it too far in Dallas. You're going into the season with your 3 best players unsigned. And meanwhile, everybody else in the league is getting bags of money. Every other player that's done good for their franchise is getting bags of money. I just wonder, I mean, look, I know Dallas has a good roster, but I do wonder how much that's going to weigh on them in the year. And is Dak Prescott going to be the best Dak? Is CeeDee Lamb going to be the best CD? Is Michael Parsons? I don't know. We'll see, but I do think it's going to be a factor this year.
And you know what? I'm sure the Cowboys are not like they're hoping for it, but Dak Prescott wants his bag because, as you guys both know, if he gets another foot injury or an ankle injury, forget it. It's gone.
Yeah, I know. It's true.
And I don't want to see that happen to a guy like that. I don't.
Just pointed out, there's not many NFL starters, real starters in the league. I think Dak Prescott is one of those guys. So
Dak's a very good quarterback. Dak's a very good quarterback.
I want to see. Look, he's a top 10 quarterback. I want to see him get that $60 million a year, whether it's from the Cowboys or somebody else. But I just don't like how the Cowboys are operating business with him. I get it. It's because he hasn't gotten them past a certain point, but it ain't just him. The entire team just, look, I love to blame Dak for not playing well in that playoff game, but Micah Parsons didn't show up either. So it's not just him.
By the way, it's strange. You're because you're a Penn State guy, you're above board about it, but you're kind of not a Micah Parsons guy.
I love Micah Parsons.
All right. I'll let you correct the record. I think
I love Micah. He's
Jeff
great.
Kerr, is Micah Parsons a generational talent?
Yes. I think he's going to reset the market.
Jeff is correct. I mean,
Johnny Mack had that debate earlier in the year. I said he's great. He's not generational.
Like Micah Parsons is what is at edge rusher what people think Saquon Barkley is at running back.
I think Micah Parsons is for what he plays at edge rusher. I actually think he's as close to Lawrence Taylor as what you're going to get. I know that it's different position, but Micah Parsons can play linebacker, and he does line up at that at times. But
He is
I
unblockable.
know, I know, but here's my problem with it is you tell me he's generational. There's 3 edge rushers in the league right now I would take over him.
I would take one.
I would take Garrett. I'd probably take Nick Bosa.
I'd take Garrett. I would not take Nick Bosa.
yeah,
over
I
him.
think
Not
Garrett's
TJ
better than
Watt either.
Who?
TJ Watt's getting older.
TJ, no. I would take Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is.
I am going to tell Eagles fans this right now. Do not hope Fred Johnson is your right tackle when they play the Dallas Cowboys, because I will say Dallas by 14.
Oh, yeah. That would not go well. That would not go well. Yeah, I mean, they're great players. Nick Bosa's a great player. TJ's a great player. But yeah, Myles Garrett is. Yeah, he's
well, Myles Garrett's
he's only getting better.
Yeah, everybody knows he's insane.
He might be the best football player in the world.
Yeah, he's nuts.
See, that would be a good conversation. Who is the best football player in the world right now? And I agree with you. I think
it might be Myles Garrett. Yeah, it might be Myles Garrett.
I mean, I can make a case.
Most
for
people are going to default to Patrick Mahomes because of the quarterbacks, but you know, I always define it as who does their job the best. And I don't think anybody does their job better than Myles Garrett. Remember him here last year, Jeff? Were you at that practice?
Oh, my God, yeah. I was at both of them. He wrecked the field last year.
Well, he wasn't. The Eagles got destroyed in the first practice, mainly because Myles, and then they sat him for the second practice.
Yeah, he wasn't there for practice, too.
And they got much better, surprisingly. Yeah, he is an unbelievable football player. And
great interview too, by the way.
Yeah,
Stud,
when you see it up close, it's awe-inspiring.
So Jeff, I gotta go here because I want to get this. Amber claps back. He says putting Parsons in the conversation with Lawrence Taylor is laughable.
Okay, now, that's funny.
I'm too young to see Lawrence Taylor.
He has more sacks than Lawrence Taylor.
Lawrence Taylor was 80s, right? 80s and early 90s, I believe.
Yeah, Lawrence Taylor might be the greatest defensive player of all time.
That's what I mean. Is this real? Like, I know Mike is great. I know we like him a lot, but is he that level? Or
well, I think I'm not defending Jeff, but what he said, he's the closest thing to Lawrence Taylor since Lawrence Taylor. I believe that's what you were intimating.
He is this generation's Lawrence Taylor. That's what I'm.
You know, I'm not going to go that high because again, if you ask me who the best defensive player of all time is, and I'm not going back to the.
I would say Reggie, but
I would say Lawrence Taylor.
It's Lawrence and Reggie. Most people say those two guys.
And I'm not going that high, but he's really good. And Eagles fans don't like him because he's on the Cowboys.
Or
let's be honest. If it was on the Eagles, you would never hear the end of how good Micah Parsons.
I don't know.
You would never hear the end.
I still don't think I'd be willing to say he's Lawrence. I mean, like I said, I didn't watch Lawrence Taylor play. I've seen highlights. I've seen all that, but I wasn't alive.
Compare the numbers. Micah Parsons is better. If you just compare the pure numbers.
Worthless, but I'm not, that's for baseball. Stick with the baseball. That large sample size, small impact on the game. Lawrence Taylor was unbelievable.
Yeah, I could say that Micah too, though. Dallas's defense sucked before Micah got
there. Oh, Micah, I'm 9 times out of 10. I'm the one saying how good Mike is. I'm just, you're in rarefied air. That's like Jalen. To me, that's like the Jalen Carter, Aaron Donald conversation. It's like, settle down. Yes, Jalen's very gifted, very talented.
I did say on CBS 3 last night, Jalen Carter is going to be a top 3 defensive tackle in the league by the end of the season.
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah,
I believe he's that, but he's got a ways to go before he's Aaron Donald, and he'll probably never get there.
No one's Aaron Donald. By the way, John, I had to rank like the greatest defensive players of all time.
And by the way, Aaron should be in that conversation.
Yeah,
he should now be in that conversation.
I had him.
So should JJ Watt. By the way,
I had I had Aaron Donald 4 if I had JJ Watt 10 when I did this.
And if JJ had a bunch of injuries after, I think he had 3 consecutive Defensive Player of the Years, which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then the injuries kind of took over. Yeah, Aaron Donald is. In fact, I'm a much more, and I have to guard myself from older guys. The guys I get to see, I'm a much harder grader on. So current guys, I'm much harder than on guys like Lawrence Taylor and Reggie White. And that kind of tells me how good Aaron Donald is, because, man, we're never going to see a player like that again. That type of player, 280 pounds, dominating.
When Aaron Donald was first dominating, I'm like, oh man, this is this generation's John Randall. And then I watched 2 games of him. Like, you know what? No, he's better than John Randall.
Oh yeah, I covered John Randall, and I said that early on. I said John Randall was great, not even close to Aaron Donald. Not even close.
It's amazing. The whole Jason Kelce never gave up a sack to him or he never had a sack against the Eagles. I forget what.
The funny thing, Spike the Football, same thing with Micah Parsons. Micah, the Eagles have generally done a great job against Micah Parsons. If you heard Nick Sirianni talk about what they do to stop those guys, you might get a better indicator other than just. And Jason Kelce on his podcast said everything they did to stop Aaron Donald. And it wasn't just Jason Kelce. They never, ever, ever on purpose didn't slide to Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
Not
once.
John,
you felt the Micah Parsons impact in 22 when Johnson stopped him that first game. And Micah had all the excuses in the world, just couldn't give Johnson his flowers. The second game, though, the Eagles did the same thing. The problem was Gardner Minshew was the quarterback and not Jalen Hurts. So Micah got to him.
Yeah. Well, I Nick has said on the record, when it involves Micah, if you can't block him, read him. In other words, use it to your advantage. But the whole point of that, and he's gone much further with things I can't talk about off the record, but focus in on if you can't block him. The Eagles acknowledge they cannot block him. So you need help. And very rarely does Lane Johnson need help with anything.
That's true. It's a good point. So good stuff there. Jeff Kerr, appreciate you being on the show, man. We'll talk to you again, I'm sure, in a week. Good segment, as always. Good insight, as always. You always bring a good element to the show that we love and appreciate. So thanks for being here on this Monday, Jeff. We'll talk to you next week. All right, brother?
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, bud.
This is Jeff Kerr joining us on Birds 365. Great stuff from Jeff Kerr. We're going to get to our commercial break. Coming up next, everybody, is a Nakobe Dean segment. It's going to be a short one. We have Chris Franklin coming up at 9:20, but I got to get the update. I know we've already gotten it. We know he's looked better, but I want to get into it. I think Nakobe Dean deserves his own segment that we'll post out on the channel.
All we've been talking about is Nakobe.
But he's getting his own segment, John. He's getting a segment that I'm going to post out and give everybody the update that they need on Nakobe Dean. So good stuff there. We'll get to our commercial break and do that all next here on Birds 365.
Michael Vick at BetUS.com. Catch an incredible 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits, plus 10% gambler's insurance. BetUS, my online sportsbook and casino.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.